Okay, well, we're here to celebrate Lama Tsongkhapa's the anniversary of his passing away. Lama Tsongkhapa passed away in 1419. So how many years is that? Something six. No, 14 is, well, 14 to 20 is 600. Yeah, should be 606 years. Um, anyway, let's start like usual with a positive motivation. Mm, So, yeah, remembering all the countless kind mother, sentient beings, kind mother, father, brother, sister, friend, family, sentient beings with whom we've been connected with from life to life for countless eons, and with whom we're connected with in this life, directly and indirectly. Yeah, especially all of the human beings, all of the animals with whom we cohabitate, our little blue planet Earth in this vast universe. So remember with gratitude all of these sentient beings, especially our kind mother, our father, our siblings, our spouse, our children, our friends, and teachers, and so forth. So think on behalf of all of them, without excluding one. Then I'll engage in this session, remembering the life of Lama Tsongkhapa, and yeah, meditating a little bit on the Buddhist path of compassion, and yeah, the behavior of compassion, nonviolence, and the view of dependent arising of all phenomena, in order that may reduce the suffering and the causes of suffering of myself and countless others, and that I may increase the well-being and happiness of myself and countless others on whom my life depends. And then especially if we can, then think that I may achieve the highest fulfillment of my potential for positive qualities, um, yeah, compassion and wisdom and generosity, and patience, kindness, and other qualities, that this life and all my future lives may be of only greater and greater benefit to others, and that I may quickly achieve the state of full enlightenment, so that with perfect wisdom and compassion, I can continuously and spontaneously act to benefit sentient beings without excluding one, without bias, in whatever way is most effective. So, in whatever way resonates best with your mind, generate a positive motivation for this session. Okay. Well, I think a celebration of Lama Tsongkhapa's life wouldn't be complete. I'm sorry, what am I doing? Without at least reciting the Lama Tsongkhapa Guru Yoga once. So, although I wasn't really planning to do that, I think we should. So let me find it. Here it is. Try to find a version that's not doesn't have a whole lot of extra added things. we'll just recite the bare verses. Yeah, here we go. Amen. Because there's a lot of other things I want to recite, and I don't want to wear you out on the last day I'm here till next year. I want to leave you on a good feeling note. Okay. And mainly we'll be looking at a lot of nice pictures today, so don't worry. Won't be too much reciting. Okay, so this is the Lama Tsongkhapa Guru Yoga. Oh gosh, I don't remember who composed it. It's written somewhere who composed it and when. I don't remember when. I think it was after Tsongkhapa's life. I think it was after he passed away. This was composed. Anyway, yeah, bring to mind whatever understanding you have of Lama Tsongkhapa, and it's good to visualize if you can. Here, I'll show you a picture. I should show you a picture. Otherwise, it's not fair to ask you to visualize. So here's a nice image of Tsongkhapa. Classical image. You see he's dressed as a fully ordained monk. During his life, he showed the aspect of being a fully ordained monk. He was a fully ordained monk. See, he has the yellow donka like I have. He must have been a Geshe as well. And then his hands. Yeah, I'm not sure the exact name of the mudra. This hand, let's see, his right hand is at his chest facing out. This typically symbolizes teaching the Dharma. And the three fingers raised, like the two fingers, the thumb and forefinger in a circle, represents the wheel of Dharma. It's something the Buddha spoke about, like that the Buddha, he gained realizations and then explained the path to generate those realizations to others. And that's like a wheel. He set a wheel in motion, right? The power of his realization, then offer that to others, then others can practice what he teaches. They generate similar realization, then they teach to the next generation and to the next generation. So he set this kind of this wheel of understanding that rolls from one generation to another generation. And also that the wheel is typically also, it's symbolic of, in ancient India during the Buddhist time, like a wheel of a chariot is also used as a weapon. Right? They would ride over the enemies with the wheel. So here, the wheel of Dharma is like a weapon that conquers our afflictive emotions, right? Our anger, our selfishness, our ignorance. Because that's what the Buddhist teachings is all about. Reducing and eliminating our disturbing states of mind, afflictive emotions, which are the causes of the suffering of ourselves and others, and increasing positive states of mind. So, yeah, the wheel of Dharma symbolizes all of that. So this mudra with the thumb and forefinger represents the wheel, and then the three fingers usually represents like the Tripitaka, the three baskets, which is a way of encompassing all of the Buddhist teachings. Or you could think it represents teaching the three vehicles of the hearers, solitary realizers, and bodhisattvas. There's a lot of sets of three in Buddhism, or the Buddha Dharma Sangha, maybe anyway, whatever you want. Okay, so it represents teaching, and then I think this mudra, it's basically the same mudra, just facing inwards. I think that represents like whatever he's teaching, he's also practicing. It's based on his own practice. But the hands are in this mudra. And each hand holds the stem of a lotus, just like Tara, many other deities, holds the stem of a lotus, and there's a lotus blossom beside each shoulder. And so you see the one to his right, by his right shoulder. Up on that is standing a sword, an upright sword. I'll try to blow it up. But it's not a very good resolution, unfortunately. But there's a sword here. That's a symbol of Manjushri, the Buddha of wisdom, with whom Tsongkhapa had a very special relationship. And many of Tsongkhapa's followers see Tsongkhapa as being an emanation of Manjushri, the Buddha of wisdom appearing in a human form. So that's that. And then the other side is a text, a Dharma text representing that Tsongkhapa was a great scholar who studied extensively and also composed many texts, and thereby caused the Dharma to flourish in his time. Tsongkhapa was kind of the leader of a renaissance of Buddhism in Tibet in his time, largely through his teaching and also his composition of texts. Lama Tsongkhapa's collected works consist of about, I think, 18 volumes of collected works. And it's not like some scholars, they have more volume of work, They have more volumes. Some Tibetan scholars are incredibly prolific, but very few have as rich a text as Tsongkhapa. Like only 18 volumes, but each text is like extremely dense and rich with quotations from sutra and ancient Indian Buddhist commentaries, and very rich reasoning and logic and explanation, and yeah, just very. If you read, I mean, in a way, that's why like oftentimes, like I don't know, especially in the West, Dharma teachers don't recommend Tsongkhapa's text so much. Like if a teacher's suggesting to a student to read an extensive Lam Rim for the first time, they won't recommend one by Tsongkhapa because it's too dense, it's too difficult. They'll recommend like Liberation of the Palm of Your Hand by Pompong Rinpoche or something because it's much lighter and easier to read. There's a lot of stories and it's kind of quite easygoing. But yeah, but Tsongkhapa's texts are the best. Yeah. One feature of Tsongkhapa's text is, which, you see, like even Pabon Rinpoche's Liberation of the Palm of Your Hand. I mean, sometimes he says things that are kind of condescending about other teachers or other traditions. Whereas Tsongkhapa, you'll never find that kind of thing. It's very polite. He'll never, even he criticizes what someone else has explained or what they've written, he'll never mention them by name. He'll only address what they've said or what kind of view they hold that he disagrees with. So he'll disagree with maybe something they wrote or something, some view that they hold, but he will never criticize or disparage that person by name. Yeah. So yeah, so why we're looking at that picture? Because I was going to ask you to visualize, right? So we can do the Guru Yoga. Okay. So yeah, whatever you know of Lama Tsongkhapa already, kind of bring that to mind, and yeah, if you like, visualize him in the space in front. Imagine him present in the space in front, kind of. And this is a way of with your mind invoking the presence of and the blessing of Tsongkhapa. And if you like, you can try to visualize Tsongkhapa in the space in front, sitting in the Vajra cross-legged posture, wearing the robes of a fully ordained monk, with his hands in the mudra I showed you. The right hand in the mudra at his chest, the tip of the thumb and forefinger touching, and the other three fingers raised, facing outwards, representing teaching the Dharma, and his left hand in the same mudra facing inwards towards himself, representing his own practice of the Dharma. And he's wearing a pandit's golden-colored hat, which is a tradition from ancient India. And then in each hand, he holds the stem of a lotus blossom, a fully open lotus blossom beside his right shoulder, on that stands an upright sword, a flaming sword, the sword of wisdom of Manjushri. And then by the lotus blossom at his left shoulder is a Dharma text. And then, if you like, you can visualize. It's best to visualize or imagine, or just think that Tsongkhapa is one with your own teachers. If you have other Dharma teachers, like His Holiness the Dalai Lama or others, think they're all one essence, just in this instance appearing in the aspect of Lama Tsongkhapa. And visualize yourself surrounded by all sentient beings. Imagine making prayers on behalf of all sentient beings. Okay, so then we can read this Lama Tsongkhapa Guru Yoga briefly. From the heart of the Savior of the 100 deities of Tushita, on the peak of a cloud resembling a clump of extremely white fresh curd, King of Dharma, omniscient Losang Drakpa, please come here together with your sons. I think we continue. In the sky before me, on a lion throne, lotus and moon, my perfect pure Guru smiles with delight. Supreme field of merit for my mind of faith, please abide for 100 eons to spread the teachings. Your holy mind has the intelligence that understands the full extent of objects to be known. Your holy speech with its excellent explanations is an ear ornament for those of good fortune. Your holy body is radiantly beautiful with glory renowned. To you who are meaningful to see, hear, and remember, I prostrate. Pleasing drinking water, various flowers, fragrant incenses, lights, scented waters, and so forth. Oceans of cloud-like offerings, both actually arranged and mentally emanated. I offer to you the supreme field of merit. Whatever non-virtue of body, speech, and mind, especially those opposite to the three vows, that I have collected from beginningless time, I confess each and every one of them with fervent regret from my heart. You strove for much learning and practice in this degenerate age, and made your freedoms and richnesses meaningful by abandoning the 8 worldly concerns. Savior, we sincerely rejoice in your extensive deeds. So that's mainly what we're doing today. We're looking at Tsongkhapa's deeds and rejoicing. And then there's a request to teach. Perfect, pure, holy gurus from the billowing clouds of wisdom and compassion in the sky of the Dharmakaya, please let fall a rain of profound and extensive Dharma upon the receptacle of those to be subdued exactly as they need. You'll recognize that verse we often use at the beginning of teachings when we request a teaching. There's the short mandala offering and then this verse, a part of that, and then the dedication. Yeah. May whatever virtue I have collected benefit the teachings and all transmigratory beings, and in particular, may it cause the essence of perfect pure Losang Dragpa's teachings to shine forever. Then we can offer a short mandala to Lama Tsongkhapa. And together with this next verse from the 5th Dalai Lama. Oh, I'm wearing. Om Sajin Bogi Joy Shime Doi Tramirabli Ni Degen Bandi Sange Jindu me te oai drokunam dai shin la choparsho. May we meet the teachings of the victorious one, Losang Dragpa, who had the morality of an eminently pure way of life, was courageous in the extensive conduct of the sons of the victorious ones, and accomplished the yoga of the 2 stages of supreme bliss and emptiness. Idam Guru Rana Mandala Kanyaratayami. All right, maybe we'll recite the Miksama mantra a little later. For now, we won't. Okay. So the plan today is mainly go through these tankas. So yeah, so actually there's you'll notice like in here in the center, there's all these images arranged along the wall. There's I think 15 from, I haven't checked the order actually. And I see they're not in order already. The first one is right. That's right. Yeah. Yeah. In our new center, we'll put them in order. Yeah, so there's these tacos. That's what we're going through today. Here's the first one here, right? And each of them you'll see, and here maybe you can't see, on PowerPoint also I can't zoom. Here, I'll show you because I have them on another place too. 1 second. Where I can zoom in PDF. PDF here. And here they are. So this is this is the text. I'll explain the text. Here's the first one. Let's look at the second one. I can zoom it. So you'll see in each one, you'll see there's, come on. Why is it doing that? You see there's these golden letters like that. You can just make out a little bit. Yeah. There's letters written in each one of those. You can barely see when you look at it like this size. But that's what the text we're going through is. It's mainly those, that description of each scene. There's generally in each tanka, it kind of, they usually start, there's Tsongkhapa at the center, and then there's a series of scenes around the edges of the painting, right? So each of those scenes depict a different episode from Lama Tsongkhapa's life. They usually, generally the pattern is they start down about, 6 o'clock or 7 o'clock of the clock, and then go around clockwise back to like 5 o'clock around here. Generally, each one goes like that. And I made keys. There's a key for each one. You see this one's, here's 1 o'clock here, then goes 2 o'clock, then, well, actually not, there's number 1 there, and then 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. They kind of go around like that. So each one. So, and that what's written in the golden letters is what's translated here in this text. This is a text by, so now I'll skip back to our PowerPoint slide. This is a text by Kunken Jamyang Shepa. And it has a very long title. The whole title is Chittamani Rosary, Spreading the Buddha's Teachings, Great Ocean of Benefit and Joy, a method for depicting the sacred biography of the great Je Tsongkhapa on painted cloth in 153 parts. So there's roughly 153 scenes within all, in all 15 tankas altogether. So this is a text, actually, because as part of the monastery curriculum, the Geshe Studies curriculum, we have to study the life of Tsongkhapa. We read a biography of Tsongkhapa by one of his foremost disciples, Kyabje Gelug Pazampo, and we give an exam on that for about, I think, 3 or 4 years. So after about the first or second year of studying it, I was trying to imagine, okay, Tsongkhapa's entire life. And I thought it'd be so helpful if you could just see some pictures, of his life, kind of like in a comic strip. And then, then I remembered these images, and then when I looked closely at them, I saw there's writing in them, and then I wondered, like, well, I thought it'd be nice to translate that, what the writing in, and then I actually suggested that to Lama Zopa Rinpoche, and just that I was thinking about doing that, and Lama Zopa Rinpoche said, "Oh, I bet there's a text where all that is in the text." So then I started searching around, and I found the text. It's by Kunken Jaya Shepa. It's in his collected works, and so then I translated that text. So that's what actually is this is. It's available on FPMT website for free download. Also, I have academia.com account. I posted it there. So here's I'll just show you the title page. So you can, well, anyway, so this is the text. And it goes, so then, combine it with images of the tankas, and then there's a key for each tanka. Actually, someone else made the key. It was published in some other language before, but then I translated, and someone else had done a rough translation of the text, but I went through and did a quite fine translation. So, and then each part of the text is numbered, right? Like there's one, sorry. It says like P1 it describes what's going on in this position here, and then P2 describes what's going on there. Anyway, there's kind of a key to it. It's explained there. So that's what we don't have time now to go through the entire text. Maybe in the future sometime we can. But in this PowerPoint slide, I just, put each image and then some of the main points from each image. So that's what we'll go through today. And we'll read a couple of prayers also, commemorating Tsongkhapa's life. So Tsongkhapa lived from 1357 to 1419. So think, like in Europe, this was kind of the Dark Ages, the Middle Ages. It was before the Enlightenment, way before the Scientific Revolution. Quite rough times. It was kind of the time of the Great Plague and that kind of stuff. Really heavy Christianity. Whereas in Tibet, this was kind of like the height of Tibetan spiritual practice and scholarship, in a way. Also, China was it was quite a powerful and thriving nation at that time. You'll see, as part of Tsongkhapa's biography, at one time, the emperor of China sent emissaries to invite Tsongkhapa to come to China to teach, but he fled over the mountain, so they couldn't find him, and then sent one of his main disciples in his place. That disciple, he went to China and taught the emperor. As the emperor's kind of one of his Buddhist teachers for many years, probably 20, 30 years. And in that position, you accumulate a lot of money, a lot of wealth. So he became very wealthy, and then when he came back to Tibet, just at the end of Tsongkhapa's life, then Tsongkhapa suggested that he start a monastery, and so he founded Sera Monastery. He's the founder of Sera Monastery. Yeah. Anyway, he'll come up again at the end. So anyway, so this first tanka is just showing Tsongkhapa and his main his main disciples on either side. So this to the I guess you can't zoom in here, can you? No, I think you can't. What does this do? Oh yeah, here you can zoom a bit. Okay. So this is Gyaltsab. He's always depicted being quite elderly. He's a bit older than Tsongkhapa. And this is Khedrubje. He's always depicted being quite a bit younger and a bit wrathful face, because he was very harsh, kind of harshly critical of those he thought were misinterpreting Tsongkhapa's teachings. Yeah. And you can see in his writing too, like Khedrubje, he has very sharp tongue. He'll really kind of make quite insulting and derogatory things about people he disagrees with. He'll kind of call them, idiots and fools, and sort of say quite nasty, sharp things about other people. Okay, Tsongkhapa, above him is depicted Manjushri, because many followers of Tsongkhapa consider him an emanation of Manjushri, to be one entity with Manjushri. Remember what one entity means? One nature with? Let's do tomorrow. Yeah, also during Tsongkhapa, during his life, he had a very close relationship, such that from about the time he was 32 or so, he could see Manjushri and talk to him like we're talking to each other. He had a direct vision of Manjushri, and he received a lot of direct teachings and initiations from Manjushri. Then these other two scenes here are scenes from some of Tsongkhapa's previous lives. Like this is Shakyamuni Buddha, and there's a white conch shell is predominant. So it's said that during the Buddha's life, the Buddha made predictions about Tsongkhapa, that because how he's like 1,800 years after the Buddha, that Shakyamuni Buddha made predictions about Tsongkhapa, and that in the land to the north, there would be this great monastery founded, and about Ganden Monastery, and he names it, and that will cause the Dharma to flourish greatly at that time. And then it's said that the Buddha actually sent a conch shell, a big conch shell to Tibet, and that when they were digging the foundations for the buildings in Ganden, they unearthed that shell. That's that story about. And then there's another. It's said that during Shakyamuni Buddha's lifetime, Tsongkhapa was a Brahmin boy and met the Buddha and offered him a crystal rosary. I think that's probably what that scene is describing. Anyway, that's what some of these scenes are about. Lama Tsongkhapa's previous life, in essence, and these also. There's several stories from his previous life. Okay, so now, how do I get out of this? Okay. Yeah. Okay, so that covers all of that. So then Tanka 2. This is the second Tanka. So I don't know. I'll zoom in again. I think that's a bit better. So we start down here. Down here is, okay, so this first scene, you probably can't, I don't know how you can see it, but anyway, here, the year before Lama Tsongkhapa was born, in the valley, in far eastern, he was born in far eastern Tibet, actually near where the present, the 14th Dalai Lama was born. Oh, it's not showing. What happened? Maybe I have to, thank you. Yeah, I might have to unzoom. Yeah. Oh, it's still not showing. Okay. You'll reconnect? Okay. I'll just go on explaining then. Anyway, yeah, it doesn't, I mean, whether you see it or not is not that important. But so in the year before Lama Tsongkhapa was born, there was the Lama who became his first teacher, Je Rinpoche is his name. He was a meditator. So in this I mean, Tsongkhapa was born in what's now known as Kumbum Monastery, but Tsongkha is the region because they grow a lot of onions there. Tsong means onion in Tibetan. So Tsongkha means like the region where they grow onions. Tsongkhapa means the person from the region where they grow a lot of onions. That's why we don't literally translate his name. No, it doesn't sound very impressive. Um, but it's very near where His Holiness, the current Dalai Lama, was born, far eastern, like Amdo in Tibet. But there was a Lama in that region his main practice was Yamantaka, who's like a wrathful form of the Buddha of wisdom, Manjushri. And he had a vivid dream or vision of Yamantaka, because he was making, he was making fervent prayers to Yamantaka, and Yamantaka appeared to him in a dream or a vision, I don't remember which, and said, "Oh, don't worry, in a year from now, I will come to your valley." Right. So then this Lama, when he somehow, he came to know of Tsongkhapa's birth, so this young child, and he had a sense that this was what had been predicted by Yamantaka. And so when Tsongkhapa was just, I think, a year or two old, this Lama, Dondrup Rinchen, went to Tsongkhapa's parents and made a lot of offerings of like sheep and yaks and said, will you give your son to me to raise as a disciple? And his father agreed. But these other scenes here, this is Tsongkhapa's, oh yeah, okay, sorry, unfrozen now. So it's Tsongkhapa's mother, and so Tsongkhapa's mother and father had different dreams while she was pregnant with him, like during her childbirth. So one dream was of like a dream of Shakyamuni Buddha surrounded by many disciples. And then in another dream had a dream of like a huge statue of Maitreya Buddha being brought to their village. And then Tsongkhapa's father had a dream of a monk carrying many texts and coming to stay in the chokhang, the Dharma room at the top of their house. So most houses, like in traditional Tibetan houses, you can see this in Ladakh even now. Most houses, they'll build a special room on the roof of the house. That's like the religious room or sacred room. Even people in Sikhs in Punjab, they do that. And they put the Guru Granth Sahib, their sacred book, in that room and treat it like a person. But Tsongkhapa's father had a dream of a monk coming to their house with many texts. So it said those dreams kind of prophecy. Tsongkhapa, okay, now we're good. So, there's Dondrup Rinchen having the vision of Yamantaka, I guess. Heaven. Oh yeah, this the one at the bottom comes later. Yeah, and there's another dream of Maitreya Buddha coming. And that's why, at the beginning of Lama Tsongkhapa Guru Yoga, it says something like, who descended from the Tushita heaven. That's because it's considered that Tsongkhapa was in the Tushita heaven in a Pure Land before. He was already actually a bodhisattva and maybe an enlightened being before, and then descended to show this human aspect to teach people. So here's Lama Tsongkhapa's mother. She had a dream of being also of dakinis coming and like blessing her, giving her initiation. And then here she's given birth. And here actually Dondrup Rinchen, there's Tsongkhapa's father holding Tsongkhapa, if you can see him. And then just in front of him is Dondrup Rinchen, who's a monk. And he's come to make offerings and ask to be able to raise that Tsongkhapa as a disciple. And these are all the offerings he's making, yaks and stuff. He offers to Tsongkhapa's father. And then when Tsongkhapa was about 3 years old, one of the Karmapas, I think it's the third Karmapa, Mikyo Dorje, because the Karmapas also had a close relationship with the Chinese emperor. So I think he was coming back from China after having given teachings to the emperor. And he stopped in nearby there, and Tsongkhapa's parents presented Tsongkhapa to Mikyo Dorje, and Mikyo Dorje gave him his refuge vows. So he received his refuge vows and a lay Buddhist name, I think Kunga Dundrup, I believe, from the third Karmapa. And then later here he was ordained then at the age of 7 or so by Dundrup Rinchen, and that's where he received the ordained name Losang Drakpa. And that's where that comes from. And then probably at the age of 10 or so, he received some initiations and then started doing retreats. So in one retreat, he had a vision of, here he's having a vision of Lama Atisha and Mahakala, I believe, who would be his main protector throughout his life. And then in another retreat, oh yeah, that's what this is here. He had a vision of the Buddha surrounded by the 16 arhats. The 16 arhats are very closely related to pure monastic discipline. And I think, I'm not sure what deity that is there. Anyway, so he had. So this is basically the period from when he was born until before he went to Tibet. Then when he's 16 years old, he goes to Tibet to engage in more extensive studies of the Dharma. And so the next few tankas, they're all about his studies in Tibet, and they all kind of look the same. I'll show you. I mean, they're all just like Tsongkhapa going to different teachers and studying up to about here, and then teaching. Yeah, from here it gets quite more colorful. So this is the third. Tsongkhapa first studied, the first place he went was to a Drikung Kagyu monastery. Here's a Kagyu Lama. That was the first teacher he had in central Tibet. And he had a close connection with the Drikung Kagyu lineage throughout his life. Actually, because for the rest of his life, he lives in central Tibet. He never goes back to eastern Tibet. So he never sees his mother and father again. He leaves them when he's 16, goes to study in central Tibet, and then never returns. And so while during the time he was in central Tibet, this Drikung Kagyu monastery, the first place he went in Tibet, was kind of like his home away from home. He would go there regularly and meet with the head Lama there again and again. And he had a very close connection with kind of the Drikung Kagyu lineage. So here he's receiving different teachings on like the ornament of clear realization, valid cognition, the middle way, Vinaya. And then like here you can see he's debating. It was traditional that a monastic, a monk would study, and then when they felt like they kind of completed their study of a particular topic, they would give a public examination on it, where they would sit and answer in debate, or here I think usually the one with the halo around their head is Tsongkhapa. So here Tsongkhapa is sitting and answering. This monk is debating Tsongkhapa. So the monk would sit in public and then other people debate. Actually, like when I took my Geshe degree, that's what you do. It's a ceremonial thing. You sit in public and you recite from prayers from memory, kind of a synopsis of the main meaning of each of some texts. And then other people ask you questions and you have to try to answer the best of your ability. So that's what Tsongkhapa is doing. He's taking these different debate examinations. Maybe I better zoom out to see what my notes say. Studies the 5 treaties by Maitreya. He begins sitting for public monastic examinations. Receives an initiation of Yamataka and Haruka. So that's what's going on here. You can see these 2 little deities. It's Yamataka and Haruka. He received initiation of. And then he's studying more and more. So, and then here he meets one of his first, who's to become like one of his most important teachers, Rendawa Shonu Lodro, who's a great scholar at that time already in the Shakya tradition. Most of Lama Tsongkhapa's teachers were from the Sakya tradition. At that time, the Sakya tradition was the most powerful and most widespread in Tibet and considered the greatest scholars. So most of Tsongkhapa's teachers were from the Sakya tradition. Although not exclusively. He had one famous Nyingma teacher who we'll come across later. But, but Tibet wasn't, I mean, a lot of teachers, they weren't particularly one part of one sect or another. They have teachers from all different sects. Most people did then, I think. And so some of Tsongkhapa's main tantric teachers, they're students of Lotsawa Rinchen Zangpo, who also, I guess, is part of the Shakya lineage, Lotsawa Rinchen Zangpo. But Lotsawa Rinchen Zangpo, his main teachers were all mostly in Kashmir, right? At that time, most of his teachers were in Kashmir. At that time, Buddhism still existed in India and Kashmir. And so he would go to Ladakh and Kashmir, receive teachings, and come back to Tibet. And then some of his direct disciples were direct teachers of Lama Tsongkhapa. Tsongkhapa was only, lived after Rinchen. He never met Lotsawa Rinchen Zangpo. He lived because Lotsawa Rinchen Zangpo was very old when Atisha came to Tibet, and that was like 1052, right? So Tsongkhapa was, several generations removed from Lotsawa Rinchen Zangpo. Anyway, so Rendawa Shono Lodro, you see, Tsongkhapa was born in 1357, right? He was born a little bit before, about 8 years before, in 1349, and passed away a bit before. So he's a little bit older than Tsongkhapa, but not much. They are meeting down here. Yeah, it doesn't look especially different from anything, but this is the first thing, I think. And Rendawa was important because he's Tsongkhapa's main teacher of Uma, the middle way, and emptiness, right? So he taught Tsongkhapa this Chandakirtis, entering the middle way, which later, at the very end of Tsongkhapa's life, actually the year before he passed away, is when he wrote his main commentary on that text, called Illumination of the Intent. It was just translated into English by Thupten Jinpa and published a few years ago. So then, he studies Vinaya. He became very ill at one point. I think that's up here. I think where he became very ill, it might be here, or it might be here. I'm not sure. Anyway. He had kind of lung, actually. Tsongkhapa got really bad lung. Lung is like this kind of anxiety or like stress disease. When you're too stressed and anxious, and then the subtle energy in your body doesn't flow smoothly, and so you get things like insomnia or pain in different parts of the body, or can manifest as stomach problems or headaches, and just kind of not feeling right. So Tsongkhapa had a lot of pain in his back, apparently, and he got lung from trying to memorize a lot. He was memorizing a lot, and this is something common happens in any situation when you're pushing too hard, right? You're pushing yourself too hard, then you can get this kind of energy imbalance and get pain. So Tsongkhapa had that in his back, and he took him a long time to get over it. Finally, he met this one yogi who had this kind of breathing technique and reciting, I think, the syllable ha or something. So that's probably what Tsongkhapa is doing there, this kind of pranayama to get over this quite severe illness he had. Let's see. Yeah, I better look at my notes again, otherwise I'll forget. What's going on here? Becomes a renowned scholar. So, here here Tsongkhapa is pictured with a whole stack of texts. I think that's Namdrel. That's when he did a kind of retreat, a study retreat on the valid cognition. As we'll see in one prayer we'll read in just a minute. During Tsongkhapa's time, many scholars held that, in order to practice practice the Lam Rim and generate realizations of the path and become enlightened, you don't really need to study logic and valid cognition. That's mainly logic and epistemology is studied in order that you can refute others' views, right? Refute the views of non-Buddhists. But Tsongkhapa, he did a deep study of the kind of these texts, which we've been drawing the material from for this last module of Exploring Buddhism by Dignaga and Dharmakirti. And he saw how brilliantly, especially Dharmakirti, lays out, establishes through logic the possibility of the liberation from samsara, the existence of past and future lives, the possibility of full enlightenment, and the Four Noble Truths, right? Suffering, the truth of suffering, the origins of suffering, the cessation of suffering, and the path to cessation. So he sees how actually Dharmakirti very brilliantly and in a very unusual way, based on logic and reasoning, then establishes the validity of the entire Buddhist path. And so that actually these texts are invaluable for informing one's own practice of the path. And that he mentions that in this prayer, destiny fulfilled. We'll read in just a minute. But that he came to that insight during this period in his life when he did this retreat on Pramana. And then here, here he has a vision of Saraswati. So several times during his life, he would do meditation retreat. Actually, from when he was quite young, he had a very special connection with the goddess of wisdom, Saraswati, who was common to both the Buddhist and the Indian pantheon of deities. So here he's doing retreat. I think he recited something like 1,000,000 mantras of Saraswati, some huge number. And then she gave him, she suggested that he give her empowerment to others. And so here he's giving an empowerment of Saraswati to others, I believe. But yeah, he gives that empowerment throughout his life. So it said and he's also, that's one reason he's such a great writer, because he's a great poet. Tsongkhapa, he's very poetic, very beautiful poetry in his writings. As you can see in the Foundation of All Good Qualities, or Three Principal Aspects of the Path, not only the meaning is very rich and profound, but it's hard to see in English because it depends on what the translator did with it. But in Tibetan, it's very easy to read and very inspiring and beautiful to read. And many people consider Tsongkhapa was such a great poet because he had the blessing of Saraswati, the goddess of wisdom, who's also connected with literature and poetry and music. So here, the fifth tanka. How are we doing for time? So here, Tsongkhapa sits for his final monastic. So this is from the age, I forgot to mention. So this depicts from his age 25 to 32. So here he sits for his final monastic debate examination. So I was sitting for mine when I was 50. No, Tsongkhapa's sitting for his when he's 25. No, they didn't study for so long before. They would study for much shorter time than now. He died when he's 63, right? So when you think how short his life is relatively, the amount he accomplished is incredible. And then he takes the vows of a fully ordained monk. Let's see. Gives his first major teaching, composes his first major work, the Golden Garland of Eloquence, does extensive nyungnes at the main temple in Lhasa, the Jorkong, begins his study of the Kalachakra Tantra, and then teaches extensively, including teachings on 17 texts together at age 32. So I'll just show you a couple of those scenes. Here he's becoming fully ordained. You see here he's sitting below with the halo, and he's below this other Lama. This Lama is giving him, so he's becoming a fully ordained monk. Then here he's giving teaching. So this is probably the first teaching he gave at about the age of 26 or 27. And then here, this is the Chenrezig, the Avalokiteshvara, the Buddha of compassion. And so here he did nyungnes at the Jorkong in Tibet. Oftentimes, sometimes in I don't know, contemporary Tibetan culture, many people associate nyungnes with a practice that nuns do, right? Not so much monks or scholars and things. But Tsongkhapa was, you can see from the age of 10, he was already doing retreats, meditation retreats and deity retreats. And he continued that throughout his life. No? So he was really a great yogi in addition to being a great scholar. And then here he's teaching more and more. I won't go into detail what he's teaching. And he's gathering more and more disciples, becoming more famous teacher. And then here he's doing a retreat on, this is Lama Tsongkhapa, he's doing a retreat on Heruka. Yeah, towards the end of that period of his life. This must be the final debate examination here, I think. So then Tanka 6. So here he meets Lama Umapa, has a dream of the Kala Chakra master, Gonsum Dechin Choki Pel. And yeah, so in this last Tanka, he's finished his study of sutra, mainly, of all the sutra topics, right? And in this Tanka, from the age of 33, this is 33 to 35, just 3 years, right? He begins his extensive study of the tantras, and meets his first main tantric teachers from the age of 33. And then he receives teachings. So he meets his 2 main tantric teachers in this age, and then has his first direct vision of Manjushri. And then Manjushri instructs him to go into long retreat. So he starts long retreat at the age of 36. But there's an interesting story about how this came about. So I'll show you. So, okay. So here you see there's Tsongkhapa. This is probably Lama Umapa. And there's Manjushri appearing. So Lama Umapa is this very interesting figure in Tsongkhapa's life. Lama Umapa, he was he was born into a nomad family and didn't really have any formal education. Just grew up kind of, herding sheep and cattle and stuff. But from a very young age, he spontaneously had visions of Manjushri. And Manjushri would instruct him, like, say these mantras, do this meditation practice. And so he did. He was a very, a great yogi. He would just do spiritual practice kind of all the time amidst his other work. But even Umapa, he wasn't entirely sure whether his vision of Manjushri was actually a Buddha appearing to him, or whether he was just kind of a little bit crazy and hallucinating, right? Or it was some kind of spirit appearing to him in this form. So actually Manjushri told Lama Umapa, when you go to central Tibet, you should request for an initiation of Saraswati from Tsongkhapa, from Lama Tsongkhapa. So when Umapa came to Lhasa, Tsongkhapa was there, he sought out Tsongkhapa and then was led to meet him and requested him for initiation of Saraswati, which Lama Tsongkhapa gave him. And this was the first time Tsongkhapa came to hear of this person. But here, Tsongkhapa heard from some of his other students that Lama Umapa had visions of Manjushri. So anyway, Umapa wanted someone to help him figure out if he was hallucinating or actually having a vision of a Buddha. So then he thought, oh, maybe Tsongkhapa can help me. So he asked Tsongkhapa to help him. So Tsongkhapa said, okay, you come and you ask your Manjushri, you ask him these questions. Very difficult questions about Dharma, right? So Tsongkhapa kind of interrogates Manjushri, and Tsongkhapa comes to the conclusion, it's actually Manjushri. The answers are impeccable. So then Tsongkhapa becomes more interested in Umapa. This guy must have some kind of realizations. And they became good friends. They became mutually guru-disciple. Tsongkhapa requests Umapa for initiation of Manjushri. And then just over about 4 or 5 years, no, maybe less, maybe just over 2 or 3 years, they have this kind of close relationship. And they do some retreats together. And eventually Tsongkhapa, that's what's happening here. Tsongkhapa so they do retreat on Manjushri together, and Tsongkhapa purifies his obscurations enough and generates enough merit that then he has a direct vision of Manjushri himself. At first he's just speaking to Manjushri through Umapa, and then gradually he accumulates enough merit that he has a direct vision of Manjushri. So these are all different aspects of Manjushri. In peaceful and with highest yoga tantra aspect, and then this wrathful aspect of Yamataka, and then in the aspect of these protectors, Kalarupa and Mahakala, I believe. So these are all aspects of Manjushri, and this would be like Tsongkhapa and Umapa there doing retreat together. But before that, also during this period, Lama Tsongkhapa he's receiving here an initiation, and here he's receiving initiation. See, the vase is being held up to give the initiation. And he's here in this place he's meeting his first tantric teachers. And here, I don't know if you can see that he's kind of dancing, and there's wearing the crown of the deity. And he's studying, unlike, it's not so common now, but as part of studying a particular deity and all the tantric practices related to that, there's also what's called cham dancing. It's like sacred or religious dancing where one visualizes oneself in the form of a deity and then, does a particular kind of dance having to do with certain rituals in the mandala. The most commonly place this is commonly done now, at least in the Gelugpa tradition, is when His Holiness or another teacher gives a Kala Chakra initiation. Like in the past, when His Holiness Dalai Lama would give Kala Chakra initiation in Bodh Gaya, then the monks of Namgyal Monastery, they study this kind of the dances related to Kala Chakra, and it's kind of an offering. It's a type of offering. You dress up as a deity and make very beautiful movements together with music as an offering to the mandala deities. So Tsongkhapa studied that. And then, so here this is at the end of this segment of his life. Well, it's not really clear, but anyway, around this time, Manjushri tells Tsongkhapa to go into retreat. So in the next frame, you'll see the first frame is Tsongkhapa goes into retreat. There's a boat here down on crossing the water. So Tsongkhapa with 8 disciples that Manjushri helped him choose, 8 very close disciples who had very pure minds. Then they went together to do solitary retreat for several years in this place called Oga with the 8 pure ones. And so he has many visions. So here begins his many visions of different enlightened beings. He has many visions of Buddhas, Bodhisattvas, and Indian masters, receives a special blessing and prophecy from Manjushri, and then had visions of the 5 lineage Buddhas during the days of miracles. So here we are. So this is the first event down here. Tsongkhapa's, with his 8 disciples, he's crossing a river from Lhasa, going to this other area of central Tibet, kind of a remote area to do retreat. And then, famously during that retreat, he and his disciples, they practiced great austerities. They practiced fasting, and they would live off just juniper berries, eat a few juniper berries a day. It's called cholen, taking the essence, cholen. They practiced cholen. And they made extensive prostrations and mandala offerings. So famously, Tsongkhapa was prostrating on a stone floor and wore grooves in the floor, and the mandala, he used a big stone with a smooth surface to offer mandalas on, and he wore his forearm down because you sprinkle the grains and then wipe off and then wipe away, wipe towards you 3 times, wipe away 3 times, and then sprinkle and then like that. And he wore his forearm down to the bone, so you could see the bone apparently. Kind of doing such so many practices. He made he did prostrations to the 35 confessional deities, 35 Buddhas, which is why that practice is so common in the Gelugpa tradition now. But he made 100,000 prostrations to each of the 35. So he made how many is that? 3,500,000. Yeah, 3,500,000 prostrations, which is kind of it's hard to imagine how someone could do that. That might be just, I don't know, maybe that's not literal, but that's what it's said usually. And then, so during that retreat, he had a vision of the 35 Buddhas. That's here. Had a vision of the 35 Buddhas, then had a vision of Manjushri and other bodhisattvas. And then here's Maitreya Buddha, there's Chenrezig. So he had many visions of different Buddhas during that retreat. And then he and his disciples, they went to a nearby temple where there's a huge statue of Maitreya. And he was, it said, he was so sad to see how dilapidated the temple was and uncared for, and the statue, that he cried and then made a vow to restore the temple and the statue. So immediately he and his disciples started restoring that that temple. So there's 4 great deeds in Tsongkhapa's life, and this is considered one of the first great deed is that he restored this temple and statue of Maitreya Buddha. And then, yeah, he continues to do retreat and has more visions, special visions of Manjushri and Yamataka. And yeah, and see, here's Tsongkhapa. And you see here's Manjushri, and from Manjushri's heart, there's a long sword coming. So it said Tsongkhapa during meditation one day, actually during a teaching, I believe, because anyway, it said he had this incredible vision of Manjushri that not only he could see, but many people in the audience could also see Manjushri. Um, and that in this vision, like there's Manjushri surrounded by many other pandits. And from Manjushri's heart comes this long sword, and it touches Tsongkhapa's heart. And then nectar flows along the sword and enters Tsongkhapa's heart. And then many of his disciples and many others in the audience, they also had a vision of Manjushri and had a vision of like nectar flowing from Manjushri's heart into their mouths or into their head and filling their body with great bliss. Um, but some who had more obscurations, they didn't see anything. It said there were different, yeah, but it was quite a miraculous sort of thing. And then the following, during the days of miracles. So this is kind of the beginning of the great prayer festival. I mean, one of the Tsongkhapa's second to last, well, his third great deed was initiating what's called what is it? Molnam Chemo, the Molnam Chemo, the great prayer festival, which is something he initiated. It had never been kind of done before, something like that in Tibet. But it occurs during the days of miracles, which are the 15 days after Tibetan New Year's, when Buddhists celebrate the Buddha engaging in a competition of kind of miraculous feats with non-Buddhist teachers and of course winning. And showing, and then going on to show the Buddha, Shakyamuni Buddha during his life, going on to show different miracles every day during 15 days. So that's the period when the Great Prayer Festival is held. But the origins of that are here. Like Tsongkhapa, during this period of retreat with his disciples, they were making extensive offerings and prayers during those days of miracles one year. And Tsongkhapa had these visions of the 5 Buddha families and many, 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 many Buddhas in the 5 Buddha families. So that's what's happening here. And then, as a result of making offerings. So this kind of thing continues to happen through Tsongkhapa's life. And as he gathers more disciples, then he gets the idea, in order to give many people an opportunity to create extensive merit together and make connection with the Buddha's teachings, then I'll start this great prayer festival. So I think he does that, he's in his 50s for sure when he does that. Here he's in his 30s, right? This is 36 to 37. Okay, actually, let's do a prayer here. Do you guys need a break? Need a break? No? Okay, we keep going. Mary Ellen says no break for anyone. No, we'll have a break in 50 minutes. We'll have a 6-month break. So this is this prayer. It's an autobiographical prayer that Lama Tsongkhapa composed called "Destiny Fulfilled." I think we might have read it together here once before this year. I don't remember. Yeah, we did. No, I read some verses from it at the beginning in Exploring Buddhism, at the beginning of the module Fundamentals of Reasoning and Debate. Maybe we read it. I don't know. Anyway. Oh, the Guru Yoga weekend or something. Is it? We did a weekend of all good qualities. Oh, maybe that time. Anyway, this prayer Lama Tsongkhapa wrote towards the end of his life, speaking about his own kind of experiences and his study, especially his studies and practice. So it's called Destiny Fulfilled because that's kind of the refrain. You'll see there's a line that refrains that he says, kind of how fortunate I am to have my destiny fulfilled. So let's read this together. Yeah, can you see it? Or I can maybe make it a little larger. Well, I think 250 will be. There we go. Okay. May we have happiness and excellences, the eyes for the world to see higher realms of life and the freedom of enlightenment, resting place for those tired from wandering on the paths of cyclic existence, the root of happiness and excellence, my kind gurus, and the noble Lord, wisdom treasure, Manjushri, I bow to your feet. So he makes prostrations and homage to Manjushri again and again throughout this. To gather a great store of merit and wisdom with little effort, rejoicing in virtue is praised as best, particularly regarding the past virtues collected by oneself. If you develop without pride great joy in your virtues of the past, it is said that these past virtues will increase even more. So that's one reason why, often when I'm leading dedications, we first rejoice in our own merit we've created during that session. This verse is quoted often times when teachers are explaining the benefits of rejoicing, and especially rejoicing in one's own virtues, right? To accomplish the purpose of this statement by the Buddha, and also because I see many other purposes as well, it would be good, O mind, to feel such joy. All this I dedicate for the spread of the teaching. Thinking this over, how well my destiny is fulfilled. Thank you very much, noble Lord, wisdom treasure. So there's the refrain verse, right? I mean the refrain, those two lines. In the beginning, I sought much learning. In the middle, all teachings dawned on me as spiritual exhortation. In the end, I practiced day and night. I dedicated all this virtue for the Dharma to flourish. Thinking this over, how well my destiny is fulfilled. Thank you very much, noble Lord, wisdom treasure. So this verse is kind of like the outline for the rest of the prayer. He divides his life into three sections, right? In the beginning, I sought out much learning, so studied extensively in the first part of my life, up to about the age of like 35. In the middle, all teachings dawned on me as spiritual exhortation. And then in the end, I practiced day and night. Yeah. Actually, the middle is probably from about the time when he had that realization of the valid cognition. All the teachings of valid cognition dawned on him as spiritual instruction. And then maybe from retreat, from the time he went into retreat in Ogai, he's practiced day and night. It's probably like that. Anyway, so there's the three outline headings accordingly. A quest for extensive learning. With the darkness of confusion concerning the points to adopt or reject, not dispelled by the lamp of perfect learning. If you do not know even the path, what need to speak of entering the supreme city of liberation? Therefore, not content with a partial or superficial understanding of the treaties of the invincible Lord of Dharma, Ajita or Maitreya, and those of the great sages widely renowned in India as the 6 ornaments and the 2 supreme ones, I studied them all in great detail. Thinking this over, how well my destiny is fulfilled. Thank you very much, noble Lord, wisdom treasure. Especially for an ordinary person, the sole way to determine the precise reality of things are the treatises on valid reasoning. So with much effort, I studied their difficult points again and again, thinking this over, how well my destiny is fulfilled. Thank you very much, noble Lord, wisdom treasure. Though I toiled in the treatises of Sutra and Tantra, when practicing and expounding their profound meaning, I found my view had not advanced far beyond those who had learned nothing and who knew even less. So then I studied thoroughly all the essential keys to induce the correct view through the subtle dialectical reasoning that distinguishes the profound, especially the treatise of Nagarjuna, and resolved all my doubts completely. Thinking this over, how well my destiny is fulfilled, thank you very much, noble Lord, wisdom treasure. There are 2 vehicles to travel to the perfect enlightenment, the profound Vajra vehicle and the perfection vehicle. Secret mantra is said to be much superior to the perfection vehicle. This is as well known as the sun and moon. While accepting these words to be true, there are some who do not ask, what is the profound vehicle, and yet assume the mantle of scholars. If such people are supposed to be intelligent, then who are the dull-witted? How extraordinary that anyone should neglect an unexcelled path so difficult to meet. Therefore, I entered the supreme vehicle of the victorious ones, the Vajra vehicle, even rarer than the Buddhas, a profound treasury of the 2 spiritual feats, and I studied it long with much effort. Thinking this over, how well my destiny is fulfilled, thank you very much, noble Lord, wisdom treasure. Not knowing the paths of the three lower tantras and deciding that highest yoga tantra is the supreme of all class of tantras is just making an assertion. Realizing this, I've familiarized myself both generally and specifically with the three genres of action tantra, such as general secret tantra, true fulfillment, the tantra requested by Subahu, and the later concentration. We won't read the Sanskrit names now, I think. Thinking this over, how well my destiny is fulfilled, thank you very much, noble Lord, wisdom treasure. Within the second class of Tantra, performance Tantra, I studied the main Tantra, manifest enlightenment of Vairochana, and ascertained thoroughly the precise orientation of all performance Tantras. Thinking this over, how well my destiny is fulfilled, thank you very much, noble Lord, wisdom treasure. Within the third class of Tantra, Yoga Tantra, I study the main Tantras, the glorious compendium of reality, the explanatory Tantras such as Vajra Pinnacle, and enjoyed the feast of Yoga Tantra. Thinking this over, how well my destiny is fulfilled. Thank you very much, noble Lord, wisdom treasure. Within the fourth class of Tantra, the highest Yoga Tantra, I studied the root and explanatory Tantras and others, renowned as the sun and moon among the Indian sages, the secret community, so that's Guhya Samaja, right? A Father Tantra, and the Yogini Tantras of Vajra Laughter, Hevajra, and Supreme Bliss, Sambara, or Heruka, right? Sambara, Chakra Sambara. I also studied the Wheel of Time Tantras, the Kala Chakra Tantra, unique among Tantras, an original system of explanation different from other sutras and Tantras, along with its illuminating exegesis, the stainless light. Thinking this over, how well my destiny is fulfilled. Thank you very much, noble Lord, wisdom treasure. This is the first chapter telling how I first sought extensive learning. I don't know, I've never heard of any scholar alive today who studied all those. No, especially the lower tantras. Like there might be, but it's very rare. You know, just to read all the names of all those tantras is quite humbling. There's so many. That he studied. Sutra versus Tantra. Tantra is kind of like the Buddhist teachings that have to do with deity yoga that you don't find in Sutra. Yeah. So here, the second section, all teachings dawn as spiritual instruction. Then, with a firm, intense, and enduring faith in Manjughosha, so that's Manjushri, supreme and banishing the darkness from the disciples' minds, I prayed in order that all scriptures might dawn as spiritual instruction and strove to fulfill all the necessary conditions. Thinking this over, how well my destiny is fulfilled. Thank you very much, noble Lord, wisdom treasure. Striving thus, I found a special conviction in the stages of the path to enlightenment, transmitted from Nagarjuna and Asanga, and hence the perfection of wisdom, the best scriptures on the profound, dawned upon me as spiritual instructions. Thinking this over, how well my destiny is fulfilled. Thank you very much, noble Lord, wisdom treasure. In this northern land, there are many, regardless of whether they have studied the text on epistemology or not, who say there is no graduated practice of the path leading to enlightenment in the compendium of valid cognition and the corpus of 7 treatises. But they also take as authoritative the permission granted by Manjushri to Dignaga when he explicitly said, write this book, in the future it will become the eye for all wondering beings. Seeing this to be completely illogical, I especially looked into this and found that the Pramana Samuchaya's opening homage is established by the Pramana Siddhi chapter of Dharmakirti's Pramanavartika through the forward and reverse logical procedures, as proving Bhagavan Buddha to be an authoritative master for those seeking liberation. From this, I found a deep conviction that his teaching alone is the forward for those seeking total freedom. As such, all the essential points gathered as one of the paths of the 2 vehicles, unfolded through the path of reasoning. Thinking this over, how well my destiny is fulfilled. Thank you very much, noble Lord, wisdom treasure. Then I brought together the Bodhisattva level, it should be the Bodhisattva levels, an ornament of sutras, and with much hard and proper work, all the treatises of the invincible Lord, Dharma Lord, Maitreya, and those following him arose as spiritual instruction. Thinking this over, how well my destiny is fulfilled. Thank you very much, noble Lord, wisdom treasure. Relying especially on the compendium of practices, which grants certainty on all the points of the path, with its graded arrangement of the vast and profound teaching, I saw clearly the many points of the supreme treatise of Nagarjuna, such as compendium of sutras, as stages of practice. So that compendium of practices is the lesser known work by Shantideva, right? Yeah, which was just recently translated and published. Yeah, compendium of practices by Shantideva. Thinking this over, how well my destiny is fulfilled. Thank you very much, noble Lord, wisdom treasure. Then, relying on Buddha Guya's well-explained practical instructions on the Dhyanottara and Vairocana Bisambodhi, all the points of the path dawned well as spiritual instruction. Thinking this over, how well my destiny is fulfilled. Thank you very much, noble Lord, wisdom treasure. Seeing how the essentials of the path of the Sri Tattva Samgraha are incorporated in the three samadhis was not that hard. But for the difficult way to meditate on the profound in that path, I relied on the great Pandit Buddha Guya's correct explanation, which combined the root explanatory and subsidiary yoga tantras, and on the stages of meditation's proper explanations of the profound practices of the three tantra classes, and the darkness in my mind was dispelled. Thinking this over, how well my destiny is fulfilled. Thank you very much, noble Lord, wisdom treasure. The ultimate of all well-spoken teachings of the mighty sage is the glorious highest Yoga Tantra, of which the greatest and most profound. On this, the supreme philosopher Nagarjuna said, the essentials of the path are sealed in the root Tantra by the 6 limits and 4 ways. Thus, they must be understood through a master's instruction, following the explanatory tantras. Remember I mentioned the other day when I was talking about how to rank when we went through the 50 verses on Guru devotion, that the tantras, especially the root tantras, are so cryptic. They're so difficult to understand because in order that to understand and practice them, you have to rely upon a teacher, right? So you don't engage in those practices without relying upon a teacher. And that's what he's saying here, right? This is what he's quoting Nagarjuna as saying. The essentials of the path are sealed in the root tantra. So they're sealed in secrecy by the 6 limits and 4 ways. This is 8 different ways of interpreting, 8 different levels of meaning and ways to read things and interpret them. Thus, they must be understood through a master's instruction. That's the point. They must be understood through a spiritual teacher's instruction. Otherwise, you can't understand them. Yeah. So you have to rely upon a teacher correctly to be able to practice Tantra. Acknowledging this was crucial. I acquainted myself for a long time with even the smallest text of the noble Nagarjuna's tradition of Guhya Samaja, the ultimate core instructions contained in the concise sadhana, the lamp of integrated practices, and the stages of presentation, and so on. Also relying on the lamp-like illuminator of the root tantra, or the bright lamp, of the root tantra, and combining them with the 5 great explanatory tantras, I studied with enormous effort. So the bright lamp is by Chandakirti, right? And discovered the 2 stages of the Guhya Samaja in general, and especially all the essentials of the perfection stage. Thinking this over, how well my destiny is fulfilled. Thank you very much, noble Lord, wisdom treasure. Through this, the essential point of many tantras, such as Samvara, Hevadra, and Kalachakra, dawned upon me as spiritual instructions. I have explained these elsewhere. Here I just show a door for the discerning, right? So he's kind of dropping like crumbs here. If you're interested, this is what to study. Thinking this over, how well my destiny is fulfilled. Thank you very much, noble Lord, wisdom treasure. This is the 2nd chapter on the middle period when all scriptural traditions arose as spiritual instructions. So now the 3rd section, constant practice and total dedication. Having thus become a treasure of instructions, I trained to familiarize myself with a path comprising the common path and the exclusive path with its 2 stages, the 2 Mahayana systems. Thinking this over, how well my destiny is fulfilled. Thank you very much, noble Lord, wisdom treasure. It is said that the Ganges-like prayers of the Bodhisattvas are all contained within the prayers to uphold the holy Dharma. Thus, whatever virtue I accumulated was dedicated to the spread of the sage's teaching. Thinking this over, how well my destiny is fulfilled. Thank you very much, noble Lord, wisdom treasure. This is the third chapter, how at the end I practiced day and night and dedicated all virtues to the spread of the teaching. In order to increase my own virtue enormously and to show properly the correct way to the many fortunate beings who possess a discerning mind, I have written this account of my education. By the store of virtue attained through this process, may all beings, through this same procedure, maintain the unexcelled conduct of the Buddha and enter the path that pleases the victorious ones. So it doesn't say much about his practice. Yeah, just one verse about his practice. Yeah. What are you? Yeah, having thus become the treasure of instructions, I trained to familiarize myself with the path comprising the common and the exclusive path with its two stages. So the common path is the sutra path, right? The practices that are common to both those who practice sutra and the Buddha's teachings in general. The exclusive path is the path of tantra. And then the path of tantra, the high of the four tantras, the highest yoga tantra has two stages, the generation stage and the completion stage. So that's what it means, the two stages, the two Mahayana systems. So the two Mahayana systems you can think of as with its two stages, the two Mahayana, the sutra system and the tantra system, I think. All right, so let's go back to the tankas. We covered this one already. So now, number 8. Oh, it's here that he restores the Maitreya Buddha. Oh, he must have completed it there. He met it. Yeah, he met the Maitreya statue. Where was it? Huh. I thought it was before. I thought for sure I saw. Okay, anyway, it's here. So this is during the age of 38, just 1 year. So his first great deed, he restores the Maitreya statue at Xingji, invokes the appearance of the Buddhas. Yeah, so it's said that, that's what's depicted here, that when they're restoring this temple of Maitreya, then Tsongkhapa commissioned artisans to paint the walls of the inside with, images of different Buddhas. And so he wanted to have a scene of the 35 Buddhas painted. But the artisans, they weren't sure how to paint them. Like, what are the different colors of the 35 different Buddhas, right? What are the different colors? What are the mudras? What hand implements do they have? So it said that Tsongkhapa invoked like a vision of the 35 Buddhas. And then while he directly was looking at them, then he described to the painters how to paint them. So he had this very extended, long vision of the 35 Buddhas. So that's what's depicted there. He receives 3 prayers from Manjushri, including a prayer to be born in Sukhavati. Yeah, so one of the most famous dedication prayers by Tsongkhapa is called a prayer to be born in Sukhavati, reborn in Sukhavati. Maybe we'll read that one today. I was going to read different ones, but anyway. But it said he received that from Manjushri. Manjushri taught him that prayer. That is happening, I'm not sure where. Anyway. He meets Lodra Khenchen Namka Gyaltsen. So Lodra is a region. Khenchen means like a great scholar, and his name is Namka Gyaltsen. And receives the Kadam, that means the Kadampa, Lamrim, and Pith instructions from him. So this is Lama Tsongkhapa's Nyingma teacher, right? His main Nyingma teacher. So I'll show you this. And he was a great, so this Lodra Khenchen Namka Gyaltsen. So they're meeting here. This is Tsongkhapa, and Lodra Khenchen Namka Gyaltsen is here. So Namka Gyaltsen was a great practitioner of Let's see. Vajrapani, of Vajrapani, the Lord of the Tantras. So it's said that when Tsongkhapa first went to meet him, Tsongkhapa, he saw him in the aspect of Vajrapani. Lodok Namkha Gyaltsen, because of Tsongkhapa's pure mind, and Lodok Namkha Gyaltsen's kind of level of realization that he actually had achieved the realization of Vajrapani, or had a very stable realization, something to do with that. So that Tsongkhapa saw him as Vajrapani, and that Lodok Namkha Gyaltsen saw Tsongkhapa as Maitreya. So they both had the very pure. So this is another of, Tsongkhapa had 4 teachers who were also his disciples. They were mutually teacher and disciple. This is another of them. Rendawa was a third one, and then another, I don't remember, but yeah. And it's significant, especially this teacher is significant. He's a Nyingma Lama, but he's also a Kadampa Geshe. He holds the lineages of the Kadampa Geshes from Atisha, right? And so, and it's from him that Tsongkhapa received his first teachings on the Lamrim, right? So in a way, it's like we owe the Lamrim Chemo and on Tsongkhapa's teachings on Lamrim to this teacher. He received the Kadam, Lamrim, and Pith instruction lineages from this teacher. So there's 3 Kadam lineages, the great treatise lineage, the Lamrim lineage, and the Pith instruction lineage. So of those 2 of them, the Lamrim lineage and the Pith instruction lineage came from this great yogi. It was also this teacher who, at this time, Tsongkhapa, he was thinking to go to India to study with some of the great Buddhist masters of India. But of course, they didn't exist at that time. Buddhism had died out in India at like around 1400. But Tsongkhapa didn't know that. He wasn't aware of that. So he was thinking to go to India, and it was this teacher who convinced him not to. He convinced him that it would be more beneficial if he would stay in Tibet and teach. So it's also thanks to him that Tsongkhapa stayed in Tibet and taught extensively. If not for him, we might never have heard of Tsongkhapa. So here he's receiving initiations. I think these are initiations he's receiving from Namkha Gyaltsen, and then Tsongkhapa asked Tsongkhapa to teach all of the monks in his monastery. He had quite a big monastery, to give them a a commentary on the 2 works by Shantideva. Because Vajrapani told him to ask Tsongkhapa for those teachings, as I recall. So that's this one. Okay. Then, so then the third lineage of the Kadam lineage, the 3 Kadam lineages, the textual lineage, he received from Kenshin Chokyap. That might be the first one, the fourth one but I'm not sure. The guru disciple. Then Tsongkhapa went on a pilgrimage to this famous mountain known for its connection with Heruka, Tsari Machen. And there he has a vision of Maitreya and Kalachakra and Saraswati. And then Manjushri. So at this time, Lama Tsongkhapa still hasn't realized emptiness, right? He's done all this retreat, he's done all this study, all this teaching, composed one great work, only one, and had all these visions of deities, but he still doesn't have the correct view of emptiness. He hasn't realized emptiness. So Manjushri tells him to rely upon the great treatise and on pure monastic discipline. Manjushri tells him in order to realize emptiness, he doesn't need to seek out any other teachers. He needs to just study further the works by Nagarjuna, Chandakirti, Buddhapalita, Bhavaviveka, Aryadeva, the main Indian Buddhist masters, to study their works and meditate on them on the basis of keeping his vows very purely, pure monastic discipline. So that's what's, let me start up here. Here's where Tsongkhapa and his disciples, they go for pilgrimage and meditate on this mountain, Tsari Machen mountain. And then he has a very clear vision of Maitreya, Buddha, who predicts that, that Tsongkhapa will become like the sun rising in the world, that his own teachings will flourish in the world. Maitreya makes a prediction like that. And then Tsongkhapa has a vision of Kalachakra, and here's Manjushri and Saraswati. So he has different visions. And then here Manjushri is telling him to rely upon pure monastic discipline and study of the great Indian treatise on emptiness in order to realize emptiness. So, oh, here, this is a scene where they're making tsatsas. Means they have balls of clay, and then they're making Buddhas, like little Buddha images, statues out of the clay. So this is, one thing Tsongkhapa did, he, in one region where he was doing meditation retreat with these 8 disciples, there were like some feuding kind of tribes or clans, family clans, that had a feud with each other, maybe even over generations, and so they were murdering each other. And some of them asked Tsongkhapa to try to bring an end to this kind of feud. And so Tsongkhapa, by mediating between them, he was able to bring peace between them. And then he led them in a practice of making tsatsas. Yeah. Some consider that one of his great deeds. There's different ways of enumerating them. Okay, let's zoom out and go. So here we are, Tanka number 10, 40 to 42. So here's where Tsongkhapa realizes emptiness. So he meets Gyaltsab Je, who's to become one of his main disciples, and then he realizes emptiness and composes In Praise of Dependent Origination, which actually, most of the Gelugpa monasteries, that's like the main thing they're reciting today, is that text. The vision of the 5, and then he has visions of the 5 Buddha families during the days of miracles, again, like before, and then meets Jetsun Rendawa again after a long time. So I want to show you mainly this scene where he realized emptiness, because it's a famous story from Tsongkhapa's life. So he was in retreat and reading the works of different masters, and then one night he has a dream in which appears Nagarjuna. Here's Nagarjuna with nagas, snakes above his head. He's always depicted like that. And then Aryadeva is his direct disciple. And then probably Buddha Palita is the one with the text, I believe, here. And then some others. But it's Buddha Tsongkhapa has this kind of pure dream where Nagarjuna and these other Buddhist masters are discussing like what's the correct view of emptiness or not, right? He must have been really thinking about that a lot, right? And then in the dream, like Buddha Palita is kind of this tall, kind of bluish hued figure, rises up and comes over to Tsongkhapa and touches him on the head with a text. And that's Buddha Palita in the dream. So in the morning, when Tsongkhapa wakes from the dream, he goes to read the text of Buddha Palita and reads this particular verse, which I don't remember which one it is right now from memory. But basically, it's explaining that that emptiness and dependent arising are 2 sides of the same coin, that they're one nature. That whenever you see emptiness, you should understand dependent arising. When you see dependent arising, you should understand emptiness. They're just two isolates of one nature, right? And so at that time, Tsongkhapa has a sudden, like, profound realization of emptiness. He has an intellectual, he develops an inferential cognizer, realizing emptiness for the first time. He has this, what is it? What is a valid cognizer? Is new and irreversible. He has his first irreversible, new and incontrovertible. Thank you. Yeah, new and incontrovertible. Yes. So he has his first incontrovertible realization of emptiness. And then and his mind is so overcome with joy that then he composes this famous praise to Shakyamuni Buddha for having taught the realization of emptiness through the reason of dependent arising. So that's why we use the syllogism, right? Like a person is empty of inherent existence because they're a dependently arisen phenomena, right? So that's what that's depicting. Then there's other visions of more Buddhas. And verse, okay. So then, he meets Rendawa. He meets Rendawa here. Here's where he's meeting Rendawa after a long time. And so Tsongkhapa, because out of veneration for his teacher, Tsongkhapa at this time has more disciples and is more famous than Rendawa. He's held in higher regard as considered a greater scholar than his own teacher Rendawa. But when he meets Rendawa after a long time, he goes outside. He walks quite a long ways on the road to meet to meet his teacher on the road. He doesn't just like relax where he is and just wait for him to come to him. He goes out to meet him and shows him much respect. and they have kind of a nice meeting together. And then, yeah, and then they go together to Reading to do retreat. So they go to, this Reading is the area where Lama Atisha, when he'd come to Tibet like 300 years before, where he mainly stayed and taught, and where his main followers like Dromtempa and Geshe Potawa and others, where they established little monasteries and mainly lived and practiced, is this valley, Reading. Actually, it's Lama Tupten Yeshe was born in this area, right? And Lama Lundup also, the former abbot of Kopa Monastery, he's also from this area. There's many great teachers and yogis from this area. So Lama Tsongkhapa goes there with his teacher, Rendawa, and then teaches extensively on calm abiding, how to generate single point and concentration, because he's just realized emptiness. Now he wants to combine it with single point and concentration, right? To generate special insight. And then his second great deed, extensive Vinaya teachings and retreats. So together with several other teachers, he teaches extensively on the monastic, vows and discipline, and they do retreat together. So he's trying to encourage others, because remember, Manjushri told him, like, how do you realize emptiness? Keep your vows very purely and study extensively the works about emptiness, right? And he had this realization of emptiness. So it looks like kind of his thinking is, I want to encourage other people to enable them to have that experience. So he teaches extensively on Vinaya and pure monastic discipline, and does retreat together with those, right? He's teaching in order to encourage, this tradition of keeping the vows very purely, because it was kind of degenerate in Tibet, right, at this time and before. And that's been a theme through the history of Buddhism in Tibet, because there's both Tantra, which does include kind of utilizing sexual energy and other kind of energies in the path, and also monastic discipline, which is based on celibacy. And so there's always been kind of a tension between these, even probably in ancient India and also in Tibet. So Tsongkhapa's, and it leads to kind of confusion. So Tsongkhapa's trying to clear those things up, even though he's a great master of Tantra, but he's and this is kind of what, it's like one of the pillar stones, or the foundational stones of the Gelug tradition, is to base even your practice of sutra, of course, and also tantric practice on very pure ethical discipline of the pratimoksha vows, whether you're a layperson or a monastic, right? So that's second great deed, extensively teaching on Vinaya and a retreat. And then so here he composes the Lamrim Chenmo. That's so between the ages of 42 and 49. The great treatise on the stages of the path to enlightenment in Reading. So this is Tsongkhapa's really his first major work, right? The other one was kind of like, he was sort of the garland of, what was it? Lakshay Serting, the golden garland of well-spoken advice. At that time, he was really just studying and was kind of writing as a way to sort of organize his thoughts, right? In a way. He hadn't had any profound realizations. This is the first major work he writes after realizing emptiness. So this is when he's like 42, 43. So all of Tsongkhapa's works basically are written within about 15 years, right? From the age of 42, let's say, to age of 63 when he passed away. So actually 21 years, right? Which is, when you look at all he wrote and how much research each thing he wrote required, it's just kind of mind-blowing. Oftentimes His Holiness, when he's speaking about Tsongkhapa, he'll say, when you look at his own daily meditation practice, it's hard to imagine anyone could do all that, like every day. And then when you look at the amount he wrote, it's difficult to imagine someone could write all that in one life. And then when you look at the amount of teachings he gave to other people, it's kind of hard to imagine anyone could give that many teachings in one life. So it really looks like he's just like using every moment of his time in extremely productive ways. And then he accepts a request to compose a treatise on Tantra. So and this is, I'll just show you one image, focus on one image in this tanka. This is when Tsongkhapa went to Reading with his teacher, Rendawa. They're both here. And then he had been requested to write a teach explaining the entire sort of path of practice. And he wasn't sure if he should do that or not. So he made extensive prayers to Lama Atisha, because it's Atisha who wrote the first Lamrim text, right? Which we looked at when we did the Exploring Buddhism module in the Lamrim. We used Illuminating the Path, that commentary by His Holiness, which is within that text was this text by Atisha. But it said when Tsongkhapa made prayers and requests to Atisha, he had many visions of Atisha and Atisha's main disciples, Dromtempa and Geshe Batawa and Nagarjuna. Nagarjuna is, just in the lineage, is before Atisha. But they encouraged, gave him encouragement and kind of showed that that Tsongkhapa had their blessing to compose the text. And then here's a picture of, it's depicting like Dharma protectors. I don't remember the exact story from this time, but I think it's at this time Tsongkhapa also had visions of like Dharma protectors. And for the rest of his life, then he had their kind of assistance or something like that. I don't remember exactly. But if you want to know, like I said, you can read that text that I pointed out that this is all based on. Okay, so then 12th, he meets Kedrup Gelug Pelzampo. It's down here somewhere. And so this is his other main disciple. And then, so this is from 50 to 53. He begins composing a commentary on Nagarjuna's fundamental wisdom called the Ocean of Reasoning. So this is, Lama Tsongkhapa has 5 main texts on emptiness, the view of emptiness. The first one is the Lamrim Chemo, the great treatise, which he just composed. And then the second, like 2 and 3, they kind of go together, are his commentary on Nagarjuna's root wisdom, which is called Sashe Tikchen. It's called like the Great Treatise on Root Wisdom. So he started writing that, and then he realized that it said he wrote like the first chapter, a commentary in the first chapter, and then he realized like actually to really generate faith that, the view as explained by Nagarjuna is actually the ultimate view of selflessness that the Buddha taught. You have to first have a way to distinguish from within the different views of selflessness that the Buddha taught in different sutras. How do you determine which one is the highest view, the ultimate view, and which ones are like kind of interpretive? They're leading up to that. They're taught for those of lesser intelligence as a way of leading them to the highest view, right? How do you distinguish between, because within the sutras, Sugana Buddha, he taught quite radically different views on emptiness. So then Tsongkhapa, he stops writing that commentary on Nagarjuna's work for a time and writes probably his most famous work on emptiness called Essence of Eloquence, which His Holiness Dalai Lama often says that's his favorite of all texts, that's his favorite. So in the Essence of Eloquence, then Tsongkhapa presents first the mind-only school view and the method he's going to use to distinguish interpretive from the definitive meanings of different teachings based on reason. And then he first presents extensively the mind-only view, and then and shows kind of why that's not correct, and then presents extensively the Swatantrika Madhyamaka view, the autonomous middle way school view, and then presents the consequentialist middle way Prasangika view in that text. But in that text is very original. It's not he's not commenting on any one other text. He's drawing on kind of everything he's read related to emptiness, and then presenting his understanding of it. But it's a very difficult text. But not. Especially the mind-only part is the most difficult. And I think it's all translated into English now. Anyway. So that's during this time, he writes that. And then once he's composed the Essence of Eloquence, then he goes back to finishing his explanation of Nagarjuna's root wisdom. So this is, at this time, he declines his invitation to China. I'll show you that scene. And then teaches hundreds of foremost scholar monks, and then establishes the Great Prayer Festival. Oh yeah, so there's a lot going on here. So, let's see. Oh yeah, this must be these are the ambans from China, like ambassadors from China. So they have kind of Chinese appearance, and they're carrying a lot of gifts, gold and so forth. So they come to invite Tsongkhapa to China. It said Tsongkhapa, he either knows by clairvoyance or hears from someone that they're coming, that they've arrived in Lhasa, and that time he's staying in the mountains just above Lhasa, where current day Sera Monastery is, or a bit above that. And then he without telling anyone where he's going, he just leaves in the middle of the night and goes over the pass to the backside of the mountains and then kind of disappears. And then for a few days, they ask around looking for him. And then when it's heard like where he is, I think maybe he met them, but he said, I can't come. It's more beneficial I stay here. So he sends one of his foremost disciples instead, who then becomes a tutor to the. And then so this is what, between 50 and 53, I think. This is the depiction of the first great prayer, the first Molam Chemo, great prayer festival. The description of it is just mind-blowing. The amount of offerings, tens of thousands of people were involved, and many of the ruling families from all over Tibet offer extensive, great amounts of offering, even like kilos of gold and silver. The main object of veneration of this time is the statue of Shakyamuni Buddha in the main temple in Lhasa, which is still there. It's called the Jo statue. So they offered a solid golden crown to the statue and painted the body in gold and elaborate ornaments and so forth. And then all the monks, probably like 10,000 so are monks and nuns, engaged in extensive prayers. And it said many people had pure visions of different Buddhas during that time. Not only Tsongkhapa. It said there's one in Tsongkhapa's biography by Kyabje, it said there was one yogi meditating on the mountains outside of Lhasa, and he heard the prayers and he came down to join. And as he was coming down to join, he had a vision of many Buddhas over the prayer festival, kind of raining down blessings, and a vision of people dying and then taking rebirth in different pure lands and God realms. So now we really need to finish quickly. So the fourth great deed he constructs. So it's based on the first Molam Chemo. Then Tsongkhapa's disciples get the idea, and also Tsongkhapa is becoming old. He's 54 now. They get the idea he needs a monastery. We should build a monastery to preserve his tradition and also as a place for him to stay in his old age. So then they build a Ganden monastery, and it said, just incredible amount of offerings just flowed in from all directions, and the monastery was built very quickly. So that's 1410. Built the monastery. Remember, he passes away in 1419, just 9 years before he passed away. He has many miraculous visions while composing notes for the lamp illuminating the 5 paths. So lamp illuminating the 5 paths, again, was just translated and published within the last 5 years, or maybe a bit more, but not much more, by Gavin Kilty. And it's based on the Guhya Samaja Tantra and explains the Rimnga Seldrum. It explains the different stages of the completion stage of highest yoga tantra. So it's kind of like the highest Buddhist teachings, and an incredibly clear and profound explanation. And then he composes 2 other commentaries on Guhya Samaja, and then a lamp, and then composes lamp illuminating the 5 paths. So even while he was composing the notes, he was having miraculous visions, and then he composed it later. And then he encounters life obstacles in his 57th year. Basically, that year, he and his disciples all engaged in intensive practices to dispel obstacles to his life. He was manifesting extreme sickness. That's what all these wrathful deities are. It's said that there's not one kind of, practice to dispel obstacles that exists that they did not perform. That they engaged in all kinds of practices to dispel obstacles, but eventually it worked, and Tsongkhapa became free from this kind of obstacles to his health and recovered and lived for a few more years. So then, what did I do? Oops. Oh yeah. Okay. So then, here he meets Gyalwa Genden Drup, who's the posthumously recognized as the first Dalai Lama. Right. So the first Dalai Lama was a direct student of Lama Tsongkhapa, and one of his important disciples. Just meets him at the very end of his life, and then teaches extensively on Tantra, and then construction and consecration of a tantric prayer hall at Ganden There were many miraculous things happen in relation to that. And then composes and teaches the clear elucidation of the intent, a thorough explanation of entering the middle way. Remember, I said it's in just a year before he passes away that he composes another of his most famous works on emptiness, this explanation of Chandakirti's entering the middle way. Which I think, is Geshe Namdak teaching now, or he just finished? Mary Ellen was just talking about that the other day. Anyway, that's also recently been translated by Thupten Jinpa and published. So this is like towards the end of Tsongkhapa's life. You see there's a lot of pure visions. Here's probably the temple being built in Ganden and then being consecrated. It said when he consecrated it, people had visions of deities actually appearing and absorbing into the statues, which have now been all destroyed by the Chinese communist government. And then here Tsongkhapa is riding a horse. It said, when Thupten Jinpa has, the detailed life story of Tsongkhapa is best told by Thupten Jinpa in this biography he recently published. I think we have a copy here. But one thing he points out is like Tsongkhapa, he was moving around like all the time. Every season he was basically going to a different place, but walking all that way, walking throughout his life. And wherever he would go, he would carry 2 yaks fully loaded with texts. Right? That was his iPad. It was 2 yaks completely loaded with texts. But here at the end of his life, he's kind of weak and elderly, and he's riding a horse. He goes to visit a hot spring and then give teachings, make one last visit to the main temple in Lhasa and give teachings. That's when he gave teachings at what is in the ground, which has now become Sera Monastery. And then, he consecrates the assembly hall at Drepung, and then visits the Jorkong, one last time, teaches at Sera, and trusts Je Sherab Senge. So that's the founder of Sera Monastery, Je Sherab Senge, with his main, sorry. Je Sherab Senge is the founder of Gyume Monastery. So there's this famous story where Tsongkhapa, actually I have a nice comic strip about it that I got from someone else, and told the story on my Facebook page last year while I was at Gyume. But there's a famous story where Tsongkhapa is giving these profound teachings on Gurya Samaja, and he's quite elderly, and he says, "Who is there among you who will uphold my teachings on Tantra?" Right? And no one stands up. And then he says again. Then he says the same thing a third time. And finally, this relatively young monk, Je Sherab Senge, who is not well known among Tsongkhapa's disciples, he stands up and makes 3 prostrations and says he will do that. And Tsongkhapa is very pleased, and then entrusts him with a special tanka and his Vajra. I don't know, Vajra and bell, I'm not sure, but different implements of his tantric implements, and gives him special initiations and teachings, and a handwritten copy of his own commentaries on Guru Samaja, and entrusts him with those. So then that monk goes on to found Gyume Monastery, which exists until today. Then Tsongkhapa returns to Ganden and then passes away at the age of 63. So we're right on time. So this is probably Tsongkhapa here passing away. Or teaching, I'm not sure. So it's interesting. It said that, I'm sorry. That Tsongkhapa, it said that Tsongkhapa achieves enlightenment in place of the bardo. So whereas an ordinary being, they die and then pass to the bardo and take rebirth, that for someone with a high level of practice already, at the time of death, because at the time of death, the most subtle level of the mind manifests, the clear light mind of death, it's called. So a skilled practitioner can utilize that most subtle level of mind to meditate on emptiness and do and other aspects of the path. And then because it's such an extremely subtle level of mind, then whatever it realizes, one deeply realizes, like has a very profound experience of. So a great practitioner can use that level of mind mainly to realize, to meditate on emptiness and purify obscurations very quickly. So it said Tsongkhapa did that. He utilized the clear light mind of death to meditate on emptiness and then purified his final obscurations. And then, arising from that meditation, basically achieved enlightenment at that time. Yeah. And it said now Tsongkhapa abides in like a pure land and will be one of the Buddhas of this fortunate eon. In the future will show the aspect of taking rebirth and then being a supreme emanation body and teaching the Dharma in the future. So it said there are 1,000 Buddhas of this fortunate eon that will come to teach Dharma in this world system. Of those, Shakyamuni Buddha is the fourth. So he taught Tantra. Of those, only 4 will teach Tantra. Right? Shakyamuni Buddha is one of them. And then Tsongkhapa in the future, he'll teach Tantra as well. And then, I forget, in the last one, there's one other, and then the last one. The last Buddha of the 1,000, he'll teach what all the previous 999 have taught. So he'll also teach Tantra. I think there's one other one that I don't remember. Yeah. Anyway. Yeah, we're out of time, but I don't know. It'd be nice to read a dedication prayer by Tsongkhapa. So maybe if you have to leave, feel free to leave. But I think we'll go ahead and read one dedication prayer. Maybe, yeah, I think we'll read the what is it? I forget the name of it now. Daemon, it's called in Tibetan. The prayer of bliss or something. I hope it's here. Let's see. No, it's not here. Yeah. Was that there? No, that's the one. That's the one. Yeah, that's the one actually. Daemon. It's called Daemon in Tibetan. It's just in the ordinary prayer book. I think so. I'll just open that. I think it's here. 1 second. Yeah, here it is. Yeah. Okay. It's a bit long, so be patient. Yeah, prayer to be reborn in the land of bliss, or Sukhabati, the land of bliss. Daemon is called in Tibetan. Okay, so let's as Tsongkhapa suggested, rejoice in your own virtues. Rejoice in our own virtues we have accumulated by this session, and especially this year. Now we're ending coming towards the end of 2025. It's good to think back over all the, whatever virtuous activities we've engaged in during the year and in our life as a whole, and rejoice how wonderful it is. All the studies, all the keeping your commitments, doing mantras and prayers, and all the meditation you've done, and all the, whatever service offered or offerings that you've made. And then in general, all the, kind-hearted, good things that you've done for others, especially. All the small acts of generosity and kindness. So think of this and then rejoice in, of course, the merit of others. Others who have equal level of realization to ourselves, and others who have higher level of realization. And then, of course, on this day, all the merit accumulated by Lama Tsongkhapa. Right? So thinking over Tsongkhapa's kind of incredible life and the incredible, inspiring example he set for countless other beings, such that he's still very affectionately remembered to today. So all this merit gathered together, and we dedicate with this prayer on behalf of all sentient beings. I prostrate to Amitabha, leader of humans and gods. Through compassion, you always see each transmigrator as your own child. Remembering you just once leaves the fear of the Lord of Death far behind. May your eminent activities for transmigrators be glorious and without end. The Buddha praised the Supreme Buddha field many times in an excellent manner. Moved by compassion, various prayers were composed, mentioning the potential to be born in Sukhavati. Being obscured by thick ignorance, not knowing what to adopt and what to discard, the weapons of anger deprives me of the life of a higher rebirth. Through the rope of attachment and craving, I am bound to samsara's prison, carried about in the ocean of samsara due to karma, wandering and around through the waves of suffering, of sickness, and old age, entering the mouth of the terrifying sea monster, the Lord of Death, buried under loads of unwanted suffering, helplessly tormented with an anguished voice, I make this prayer from my heart. As witness to my yearning mind, my guide and soul friend, Amitabha, draw me out of this miserable state. With respect, I also make request to your retinue and to the Bodhisattvas, Avalokiteshvara and Vajrapani. Please don't forget the commitment of your supreme mind made over immeasurable eons for our benefit. And just as the king of birds flies through the sky, the path of the gods, please come here by your miraculous power and compassion. By the power of combining oceans of the two accumulations created in the three times by myself and others, may I, at the time of death, directly see the guide Amitabha, together with his retinue, his two chief disciples, and so forth. At that time, may I generate intense, strong faith by focusing on the victorious one and his retinue. May I not experience the suffering of death, and may I remember the object of faith when death draws near. As soon as my consciousness has left this body, may the 8 bodhisattvas come in a magical way and show me the path to Sukhavati. May I be reborn with great intelligence and a precious lotus in the lineage of the great vehicle. Directly after birth, may I hold up a collection of immeasurable qualities such as retention, meditative stabilization, bodhicitta of non-apprehension, and inexhaustible courage. Having pleased the unsurpassed teachers such as Amitabha, the victorious ones, and the bodhisattvas of the 10 directions, may I receive the pure teachings and transmissions of the great vehicle. Realizing the true meaning of these teachings, may I be able to go during every moment to boundless Buddha fields, using magical powers without obstruction, and complete all the great deeds of the bodhisattvas. After birth in the Pure Land, may I also be motivated by resilient compassion, and with magical powers without obstruction, mainly go to impure lands and establish the pure paths praised by the victorious ones, through teaching the Dharma to all sentient beings in accordance with their dispositions. May I, for the purpose of all limitless transmigrators, quickly obtain the state of the victorious one by completing these marvelous deeds without delay. When the activities of this life are spent, may I clearly behold in my path of vision Amitabha and his ocean of retinues, and may my mind be filled with faith and compassion. As soon as the appearance of the intermediate state arrives, may the 8 bodhisattvas show me the unmistaken path, and may I be reborn in Sukhavati to guide the transmigrators of impure worlds with my emanations. Even if I do not achieve such a supreme state, may I, through all my lives, always obtain the perfect basis for hearing, contemplation, and meditation upon the victorious one's teachings of scriptures and realizations. May I never be separated from this basis, ornamented with the 7 qualities of the higher realms. May I, in all those circumstances, achieve the recollection of remembering all the previous states of rebirth. Throughout all my future lives, may I see samsara as being completely without essence and be attracted to nirvana's qualities. With this state of mind and through the Bhagawan's excellent teachings on Vinaya, may I go forth for ordination. When ordained, may I never even commit the smallest downfall or misdeed, and just as Bhikshu Miktrukpa did, achieve great enlightenment by completing the collection of morality. Furthermore, throughout all future lives, may I realize the correct ways of knowing how afflictions arise and how to purify them, and obtain the marvelous recollection of the apprehension of never forgetting all the words and meanings of the Dharma, the branch of perfection. May I obtain the perfect courage of teaching others that which I apprehend without obstruction. Furthermore, throughout all future lives, may I obtain and never be parted from the doors of meditative stabilizations, such as the brave-like one, the supernatural eye, the fleshy eye, clairvoyance, and the ability to perform miraculous deeds. Furthermore, throughout all future lives, may I obtain great wisdom, the ability to self-reliantly differentiate between what to adopt and what to discard. May I obtain clear wisdom, the ability to differentiate between the diversity of the most subtle points without joining them together, of the way afflictions arise and how to purify them. May I obtain quick wisdom, the ability to stop as soon as they arise all incomprehension, wrong views, and doubts. May I obtain profound wisdom, which penetrates inexhaustibly the words and meanings of the scripture unfathomable to others. In short, may I become like the foremost Manjushri, reaching the perfection of all the Bodhisattva's deeds with skillful wisdom, differentiating the words and meanings of the scriptures without the fault of imperfect knowledge. Having easily gained great, clear, quick, and profound wisdom, may I, in order to gather the fortunate, crush false expounders, and, to please the wise, may I perfect the skill of teaching, debating, and composition that focuses upon all the scriptures of the victorious ones. Furthermore, throughout all future lives, may I stop all apprehension that is primarily concerned with self and all laziness of inadequacy and weaknesses regarding the great deeds of the Bodhisattvas. May I become like the foremost Avalokiteshvara, reaching the perfection of all the Bodhisattva's deeds with skillful bodhicitta, perfecting supreme courage and taking responsibility for others. Furthermore, throughout all future lives, whenever engaging in the welfare of self and others, may I become like the foremost Vajrapani, reaching the perfection of all the Bodhisattva's deeds with the skillful abilities to destroy Maras, those with extreme views and opponents having wrong views. Throughout all future lives, may I become like the unequaled king of the Shakyas, reaching great enlightenment. And in order to complete the Bodhisattva's deeds with effort lacking laziness, may I, after generating bodhicitta, without being distracted for even an instant, work with great fervor. Throughout all future lives, may I become like the one gone to bliss, the king of medicine Buddhas. And in order to destroy all illnesses of body and mind, the obstacles to the achievement of enlightenment, may I have the ability to pacify all suffering of body, speech, and mind by merely mentioning his name. Furthermore, throughout all future lives, may I, by merely mentioning his name, become like the victorious Amitayas in having the ability to destroy untimely death and complete my lifespan as I wish. When life-threatening obstacles approach, by seeing the appearance of the body of the protector Amitayas that subdues through the four activities, may all life obstacles be completely pacified. Throughout all future lives, may I, through the power of having generated uncontrived stable faith and recognizing teachers as being the protector Amitayas himself, whose body appears in accordance with whoever needs are to be subdued, never be separated from the victorious Amitayas, who directly acts as spiritual teachers. Furthermore, throughout all future lives, may I be fostered by spiritual teachers of the Mahayana, the root of all mundane and supermundane qualities. During this care, may I only please them with all my three doors, through stable, unshakable faith, and never, even for an instant, displease them. May spiritual teachers instruct me with all teaching in its entirety, and may I have the ability to realize the complete meaning as intended and bring my practice to perfection. May I never, even for an instant, fall under the influence of misleading teachers and harmful friends. Throughout all future lives, may I have faith in the law of cause and effect and enter a continuous, effortless experience of the realizations of renunciation, bodhicitta, and the complete, pure view. Throughout all future lives, may all my virtuous activities of body, speech, and mind be causes solely for the benefit of others and perfect enlightenment. Maybe, let's recite a few multiplying mantras. We're going to recite this. To the Bhagawan, Tathagata, Arhat, perfectly complete Buddha, Vairocana, King of Light, I prostrate. To Bodhisattva, Mahasattva, Samanta Bhadra, I prostrate. Tayata Om Panchadriya Awa Bodhine Soha Om Duru Duru Jaya Mukha Soha Tayata Om Panchadriya Awa Bodhine Soha Om Duru Duru Jaya Mukha Soha Tayata Om Panchadriya Awa Bodhine Soha Om Duru Duru Jaya Mukha Soha. To Bhagawan, Tathagata, Arhat, perfectly complete Buddha, medicine guru, king of Vaiduriya light, I prostrate. To Bhagawan, Tathagata, Arhat, perfectly complete Buddha, king fully accomplishing all dedications and prayers, I prostrate. Then we bring to mind any dedications and prayers that you'd like to make. for yourself, or friends, or family, or for the world at large. Mm. So may all those your own virtuous prayers be accomplished according to your wishes. So in short, we pray that all sentient beings be free from every form of suffering and the causes of suffering, and have every form of well-being and happiness up to full enlightenment, especially all those who've taken rebirth in the lower realms or recently died. May they take a precious human rebirth or rebirth in the Pure Land. And may the Buddha Dharma flourish in the world, as was expressed here so eloquently. And may His Holiness the Dalai Lama and all of our other teachers, living teachers, have long and stable lives, and all of their holy wishes be fulfilled exactly according to their intentions. And may Kyabje Lama Zopa Rinpoche and our other teachers who've show the aspect of passing away and not yet taken rebirth, show the aspect at the most appropriate time of taking rebirth, and again, show the aspect of being a peerless example in studying, contemplating, and meditating on the Buddhist teachings, and teaching and serving the teachings. Oops. Yes. And yeah, and then for the Ocean of Compassion Buddhist Center, to be free of any obstacles, and especially to be able to quickly find new premises. Yeah, that's even better and less expensive than the current one. And yeah, and for the center to have every supportive condition, especially in terms of volunteers and financial support for the center. Yeah, so I think that's all. And all of our other brother and sister centers as well. Okay, thank you all. Sorry to go so much over time. I think it was worth it. Reading such a great dedication prayer at Tsongkhapa.